Okay, this is lesson 4.3, part 1. We're going to be writing equations in point-slope form. In the past, we determined the slope of a line. We'll be utilizing that today, and we graphed linear equations. Today, we're going to write equations in point-slope form, and that's going to help us to write equations of lines in slope-intercept form and writing it in standard form, both of which we've done from different, given different things, but we're going to be able to go back and forth between point slope form, slope intercept form, standard form to realize it's all just the same line, but it can look different depending on our needs. So the point slope form, if you have that salmon colored sheet that we gave you that has all the formulas for the EOC, you may get that out. We're also going to write it down here so you have it for reference for this lesson, is y minus y1 equals the slope, which is always m, times the quantity of x minus x1. And we're going to take just a moment to explain what each part of this means. M, of course, is slope. That's still slope. Just because it's in a new equation, it's nice that it still means slope as an m. There we go. And then we need to know what this y1 and the x1 mean. So hopefully this makes sense, but when we're given a point and slope, we're going to use the point slope form because that's what we were given. So if you'll look over here, we have a point and we have a slope given to us. So your point, just like when we were finding slope, we label it xy, and these are both 1 because the 1 indicates it's the first point we're talking about. If we had another one, we'd put x and y in 2 and 2 because that's the second point. They go together. Well, we only need 1 point. It doesn't say points slope. It says point slope. I only need 1. So wherever you see the y and the x is where we're going to plug in those values of the point we're given. And then the x that doesn't have a number and the y that doesn't have the number, if you'll recall in the last notes, we explained that those are every point on the line that makes this equation true. So we can call this really the domain of our line, and the y would then be the range of the line. So using this point, let's make one before we actually do some more examples. So if I was using this point and this slope, we're going to use the property of substitution. So I'm going to substitute for these 3 values. So the y1, the slope, and the x1, because I have numbers to plug in for each of those. Everything else stays the same. So don't change this x and don't change this y. They stay the same. So when we put these numbers into this equation, this is how it will look. We get y minus, and that is minus a negative 6. Be real careful, and we'll practice more with this. So I get y minus a negative 6 equals, and the slope is 1/5. And then notice I have a parenthesis, quantity of x minus the x value, which is 2. And then we're going to go ahead and simplify this because we don't like seeing double negatives like that. So I'm going to go ahead and change that into a plus because subtracting a negative is the same thing as adding. So we're going to notice it here, and we'll notice it in a couple of others. But when you're subtracting a negative, when one of your points has a negative in it, you're going to see that this changes to a plus instead of a minus, but that's still the form. So that is how we would write this in point slope form, and we don't have to do anything else. We don't have to solve for y. We don't have to distribute. That's it. It's in form. Okay, so don't make it harder than what you're seeing here. So now let's go ahead and try this on another one. So we have example 1. So it says 3/5 m equals 4/3. And let's see here. There we go. Okay. We're going to use that formula. And again, if you have your sheet out, that's great. So here's my x, and here's my y, and again it's x1 and y1. So we're just going to do substitution into that formula right there. So we get y minus 5 equals, and then m in this case is 4/3, so 4/3 parentheses x minus, the x term is 3. And that's it. Done. This one is done. So now you have an example. So now you have a try this that you can work on over there. My screen's messing up a little bit. Okay. So now let's look at example 2. What's different about this one from this one? Well, it still gives us a point and it gives us the slope. It's just giving us the graph as well. But it does give us the values. So this is your x. This is your y. And again, that's the first point, the only point we're talking about. We're still going to plug it back into that formula. So I get y minus 4 equals, and the slope here is -3, so equals -3 times the quantity x minus a -1. Be very careful to show both pieces of this because you don't want to accidentally think, oh, I put negative down twice. No, I knew I did that. I subtracted a -1, so that becomes a plus. So this is our answer. Done. We do not have no more to do. Now you are going to do the try this on your own. What's different about this one from this one is this one gives you the slope, but you're not given the point, even though here's a point right here and here's a point. Okay, so you can use either point. And in the next example, I'll actually show you so you can come back and do both of them to show that you know how to do both of them. It doesn't matter which point you choose. So name one, and I'll kind of help you here. This one is -3, 3. And this point down here is 2, -3. Okay, so use one of those. I'm helping you out, but you should be able to name your coordinates by now. So you can use either one, and we'll talk about it tomorrow some more, and I'll talk about it in the next example. So on the back of the sheet, you've got 3a. So now it says write an equation in point slope form again. I'm going to write our point slope form up here so we don't have to keep flipping back and forth. M times x minus x1. Okay. And the difference here is I wasn't given the slope this time, but it still says I need to use the point slope form. Well, if I need to use point slope form, they will have given me enough information to use a point and find the slope. We know how to find slope using the slope formula. So again, if you don't remember, it's just the change in y over the change in x. So this is x2. That's a 2 up there. Minus x1. And just notice, it just means that whatever this point is, I go from this point to this point to this point on my y values and my x values. So I'm going to label first because that helps a lot of us make sure that we're doing it correctly. So if I call this point 1, and call this point 2, and you don't have to, notice that. I could have called this point 2 and this point 1. As long as I plug it into the formula correctly, I'm going to get my answer correct. So I have -1 minus 2 over 4 minus a -5. Well, that minus a negative becomes a plus, right? That's just a big plus. So I get -3 over 9, but that can be simplified into -1/3. So that is my slope. Okay, now I have a slope, and I actually have 2 points to pick from. So I'm going to show you how we can actually make 2 equations from this, and they're both correct. Okay, so I'm going to pick the first point first. I'm going to say y minus 2 equals, the slope is -1/3, -1/3 times the quantity x, and it's minus a -5, so I can just say x plus 5. That's one equation that will work. Although I have 2 points. So I can go ahead and make another one. And for our notes today, you're going to have to make 2 equations, just so you know. So y minus the -1, so it's y plus 1 equals, and then it's still -1/3. That slope should not change. It's the same line. So if they have different slopes, I'm not talking about the same line anymore. So now I have x minus 4. And we'll work more on this later, but if I multiplied that through, if I distributed and then subtracted the 2 here and then, or added the 2 and then subtracted the 1, you know, to make it y equals, you'd actually find that we get the same answer, okay? But we'll do more of that later. Right now, this is my answer. Done. We did the slope, and notice that it didn't matter which point I picked. Both of these are correct, okay? So now in B, we're going to do the same thing. It's just given to us on the graph, okay? So 1, 1, and -1, -3 are my 2 points here. You can see, and they're labeled for us. So I'm still going to use the point slope formula. This can be my, just to show you, I'm going to use this as my x1, y1, and I'm going to use this as my x2, y2, okay? So I get -3, so m equals -3 minus 1 over -1 minus 1. And so that gives me -4 over -2. Well, when we simplify that, a negative over a negative is a positive, and 4 over 2 simplifies to 2. So m equals 2. And those of you that make this one your first point and this your second point, it doesn't matter. If you follow that same formula, you're going to get your slope of 2. So now I've got 2 points, so I can make 2 equations. So I'm going to do this, I will do my x1, y1 first. So y minus 1 equals 2 times the quantity x minus 1. That's the first one. That's using that point. Now I'm going to use this point. So I get y, and we should all be saying it together now, plus 3, because y minus a -3 will give me a plus, equals, and again the same slope, doesn't change, and then x plus 1. Okay? So that's 2 forms of that same line. Okay, so I was just going to box this. So we get 2 forms. Notice, I don't want you to be afraid to pick either point. Either one will work. Okay, so now you have 2 more to practice on here, and you have these notes to look at. And then for your example 4, it says write an equation. Okay, and we're going to change this. This is actually going to be your homework. So I'm going to have you do these 4, writing it out in point slope form. So you're going to find the slope and then use both of the points, because instead of writing an equation, I want you to write 2 equations. And the reason you can do that, we've done it twice now, use especially the ones up here. So example 3, A and B, I really want you to use those to find the equation of the line that passes through each pair of points. We will continue to look at a couple of other ways we could use it, but right now let's just get really good at using the point slope formula. So your homework is to finish these notes, and on the bottom you are writing 2 equations of the line that passes through each pair of points. So really shouldn't take you more than 15 minutes past this video.